Hello and welcome to today's live celebrating National Kidney Month. And today I will be joined with other three kidney dietitians to ask to answer your questions. So let me today and Maria myself.
Hi, Maria. How
Hi.
are you? It's so good to see
Good
you.
and you?
Hey guys.
Yeah.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. It's so good to see you.
I know it's been so long. I was thinking it's been what, like a year almost?
Seriously.
I feel like almost a year since we did this.
know.
Maybe it was like May or June that we did it last. But it's been a long time.
Yeah, and I wasn't here for a few of them because I was busy taking care of my twins. So, you know.
Which they're almost
Yeah.
a year now,
You
right?
both
Yeah,
are
in May, early May.
That's insane.
Yes.
Hey Jen.
Hi, Jen.
Hey, everybody. I was catching up with what you guys were just talking about, how it's been forever. And yeah, time flies.
Yeah,
Seriously.
definitely. So very, very glad that we could all make it today. And March is a very special month for us because we celebrate twice, like double, because we're celebrating National Nutrition Month and National Kidney Month. So we're very glad that we could get together and talk a little bit about kidney health. So let's go around for people that don't know us. Who wants to start?
Okay, I'll start. Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle. I'm a renal dietitian, and you guys can find me. Plant-based kidneys is my Instagram, and then I'm on YouTube, Plant-Based Kidney Health. And we've kind of all been doing this together for a few years now, which is crazy, but it's nice to see everyone who's old faces and new faces.
Sure, I'll go next. My name is Jen Hernandez. I am the Renal Dietitian founder behind Plant Powered Kidneys. So you can find us at Plant Powered Kidneys or on our website, plantpoweredkidneys.com, or our Facebook group for Plant Powered Kidneys. And yeah, it's something that we love chatting about here with all of you. And we do have quite a list of questions already to be going through for today.
Nice.
And hi, everyone. I'm Melanie Betts. I am also a renal dietitian, and I'm so excited to be here to celebrate National Kidney Month with all of these lovely ladies. It's also National Women's Month, so it's like everything that I love, basically, which is wonderful. So like I said, I'm a renal dietitian. I actually specialize in kidney stones, so if you are struggling with kidney stones, definitely check out my website, which is thekidneydietitian.org, and you can find me here on Instagram at thekidneydietitian.
Yay. And Maria, I am also a kidney dietitian. I work mainly with Spanish speaking adults. So all of my content you'll find in Spanish. So if you need Spanish content, you can find here in my new Instagram page, Nutrición Renal PR. And that's going to be it's a website also. So everything in Spanish. So Jen, you've got a lot of questions.
So we posted earlier this week or last week on Instagram and asked some people about questions that they had. So I do have a list, and I'm going to be looking over at my computer to keep track of all of it in the meantime. But we have a handful of questions ranging from our opinions on soy and fitting that into the renal diet to kidney stones. So there is a kidney stone question on here. We have questions about finding a dietitian. We have snack questions. How to manage potassium. So we have a ton of questions. I'm more than happy to start diving into those if you all want us to start from there, or if there's anything that you all want to jump into.
Yeah. Anyone who's watching live, go ahead and post your questions in the question icon so it's easier for us to find. And while we wait for those, we can
Yeah,
start with
okay.
yours,
So the
Jen.
first one that we had posted was about soy. What is our opinion about soy with the renal diet?
Okay, I'll start. I think soy is a great plant protein option for people with kidney disease. There's actually research behind it and it being beneficial, especially when swapping it for animal protein. I think a couple of important things with soy, ideally, if you can get organic, and then you want to choose minimally processed soy products. So things like tempeh, tofu, edamame, obviously soybeans, instead of, like a soy burger that uses a concentrated soy protein isolate and then has tons of salt, sometimes phosphorus and potassium additives. That's where you can get into trouble. But it can definitely, those minimally processed soy options can be good animal protein substitutes to fit into your diet.
Yeah, I totally agree. We get a lot of questions about that at PPK, and there's really rarely a situation that I would say soy wouldn't be included. I think the biggest reason to not include soy is if you have an allergy or an intolerance to it, or if you are like force feeding yourself it. If you feel like it's something that you have to eat, just know that there's other options, and it's by no means required for a healthy kidney diet. It is an option, and it's a great option. But if it's something that you don't enjoy, which we hear a lot as well, which may have to do with the way that you prepare it, or how you, like, if you add flavor to it or if you don't add flavor to it, because it really doesn't have a lot of flavor to begin with if you're thinking about like tempeh or tofu. So it's a great base to add on flavors, but I wouldn't just eat it plain by itself. But it is incredibly versatile.
Yeah, and I think that's with the flavoring. I mean, things like coconut aminos, garlic, all the different, pepper, onion powder, paprika, cumin, vinegars, lemon, lime, all of those. If you make a really good like a dressing or marinade for it, and then you get it. I mean, especially if you like it crispy, you can roast it in the oven. It could be grilled, but it's all about getting the texture and then the flavor into it. And I would never expect anyone to eat plain tofu. I think my nephew likes that, and he's like too. But other than that, it's, add flavor to it. Obviously, we want lower sodium flavor options, but it's, you don't have to eat it plain by any means. Make it taste good.
Yeah. I recently found, I feel like the tofu options that my grocery store carries like vary every single time I go, so I'm not quite sure why that is, but sometimes they have like right next to the normal like firm tofu or soft tofu, they have fried tofu, which is literally just firm tofu that has been fried in sesame oil. Like there's no salt added, like nothing else. So it's wonderful because you don't have to do anything to it. Like, if you use like tofu in a stir fry, a lot of times you have to press it and then bake it, which isn't a ton of work, but like it is extra time. And so if you so excited to find it and try it the other day, it was delicious.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of time requirements. Not all the time, because I do know sometimes when I use tofu, I don't press it. I don't go through all of that process. Although I will say one of my favorite little kitchen gadgets is a tofu press that I got on Amazon. And you literally just put it in there, you squeeze it down so that it presses, and then you put it in the fridge and then forget about it until you're like, oh yeah, I should probably use this tofu that I've been pressing. But it does a great job to take care of some of that without you actually being in the kitchen for at least that part of the prep.
And I also encourage clients to try it several times in several different ways before saying, I don't like it. Because maybe the first time, it's the first time you're trying a new food, you're not used to using it. So don't be discouraged if the first time you eat it, you don't love it. Just try again. I've had older adults over 70 years old who had never prepared it, and then they try it, and then they are like, it's part of my diet now. So I love hearing like older adults willing to try
That's
new
such
things,
great advice
right?
for any food, like not just tofu, right?
Of course. So we got 2 questions. Let's see. Let's take one of these. Can you see that? Can you see the question? So it's, what is the best protein powder to use when making smoothies?
So I can start this one. So I will say that for most of the people, I'll go out on a limb and say that all of us work with, we're actually trying to limit how much protein someone eats. So excess protein can contribute to kidney stones and also the progression of kidney disease. And despite what the world may have you think, most of us are actually eating a lot more protein than our bodies need. And so for the vast majority of us, adding protein to our diets with something like protein powder doesn't make a lot of sense. I'd much prefer you get protein from actual food sources, whether it be tofu or beans or lentils or even fish or chicken, honestly, over something like a protein powder. So I actually don't recommend protein powders for, again, 99% of the people that I work with. Yeah, anyone else have a follow-up to that?
I was just I agree with you. And since they're specifically asking about smoothies, you don't have to, if you're someone, maybe you're on dialysis and you have higher protein needs, or you're someone with kidney disease that you're just trying to meet your protein needs in a smoothies, like one of your meals or something, then that's where you can utilize things like the seeds, flaxseed, chia seeds, hemp seeds. Those can add a good amount of protein to your smoothie, and they all, it adds up. And it's not going to be this very concentrated, whether it's pea protein, soy protein, whey protein, it's not that, and it's coming along with fiber, fatty acids, and things like that. They do even make, I've seen like a hemp protein powder where it's just hemp seeds and it's been ground into this powder. And again, it is going to be higher in protein, so you will want to be careful of that depending on your needs, but it doesn't have all this other stuff added to it, and it's not 20 to 30 grams of protein either.
It's a great point.
Yeah, I'll add that we get a lot of people who are on dialysis who could benefit from additional protein. So if that is the case, then we do have an article on plant-powered kidneys about protein supplements, more specifically towards dialysis, and we have a few protein powders that we recommend there. So that you can, if you want to go check that out. But just like the other dietitians here have said, adding extra protein in the form of a supplement like that is typically not what we're looking at if your goal is protecting your kidney function and delaying or trying to stay away from dialysis. But everybody's different, and maybe there is a situation that you have personally where your healthcare team, your dietitian, is recommending that you have more protein. So I would dive deeper with that clinician to find out really what is going on with your health, why you should be supplementing with extra protein powder on top of food, and then maybe look into, like the other dietitians here have mentioned, other actual food sources of protein that can be included in a more affordable and probably enjoyable way.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have anything else to add. Okay, do you want to take one of yours, Jen? We have 4 more here, but we can do
Sure. So the next one I have, it's really interesting. Is there a natural way to flush out potassium? I'm on it says VVLP. I'm guessing very low protein, but I'm not 100% sure, but VVLP diet, but is bone and meat broth safe? So it's kind of a 2-part question, asking about the potassium and getting rid of that or balancing that, and then about protein, a low protein diet with bone and with variety of bone broth, basically.
So I can start. So our body is very, very smart, and when kidneys, like usually most of our potassium comes out in our urine, but when kidneys start failing, we can excrete some through our gut. So avoiding constipation can be a natural strategy to get rid of some of the potassium. So for that, movement, fiber, enough water, all of those things are really important for gut health. So that's the natural part. Anything you guys want to add?
Go ahead, Michelle.
I was just gonna say that I think again, not kind of addressing the side of like, oh, can we just flush out potassium? Like, oh, if I eat a whole bunch of not that I know of. I think it's more, Maria, how you're saying you want to try to make sure that, everything's blamed. Blood levels of potassium are always blamed on diet, but there are things like your gut health and absorption of potassium in the gut and constipation, like you said, but also preventing and treating metabolic acidosis is important. And so that's making sure that you have we always talk about the limiting the animal protein and making sure you're getting plenty of fruits and vegetables. And there's lower potassium options that you can choose from if needed. But I would say those are important things so that you're not having more on a cellular level. You're not having these shifts in your intracellular and extracellular potassium. But that's kind of more from a standpoint of, hey, let's ideally prevent constipation and metabolic acidosis. But if we can then, if you're experiencing those, then treat those, fiber, fluid, movement, fruits and veggies to make sure that that's not adding to a high blood potassium level.
The other thing that often isn't addressed or thought of in terms of potassium balance is your blood glucose or blood sugar levels. If your blood sugar is consistently very high, that can also make potassium go where we don't necessarily want it to go and out of our cells and contribute to those high blood potassium levels. So, kind of thinking about potassium management, I think all of us are getting at kind of more of a holistic, if you will, approach. It's not just how much potassium you eat. Like, our bodies are not a tube. That's that simple, right? It's way more complicated than that. And so working with a dietitian to help look at your gut health and your blood sugar and all of these different things, where you're getting your potassium and absorption, like all of these things kind of play together to help manage that potassium level the best that we can.
And I just want to add on top of this, this is going to be something that you really want to talk with your healthcare provider, your primary care provider, your nephrologist. But looking at your medications can also have an impact on your potassium balance. And many practitioners do acknowledge this when they talk about certain blood pressure medication that actually retains potassium versus blood pressure medication that releases potassium. So by no means should you be making your own adjustments to your medications, but this is a great opportunity to just further dive deeper into this conversation with your prescribing physician to find out what's going on, what you should be looking for, and if potassium is ever a concern, is this something that you should be discussing and maybe looking at a different approach with that medication or what's going on there. But that's also something that I think a lot of people tend to forget about because they probably were told about it in the beginning of getting their medication, but many people are on these medications for years and years and years and don't realize that this could be contributing to it down the road. So make sure you're looking at this from that whole approach of talking with your entire healthcare team about all these different areas, because we've listed off a ton of places for you to be talking with your team about opportunity and controlling your potassium in a variety of ways.
Yeah. And then to answer the bone broth part of it, so if they're, especially since they're saying if they're on a very low protein diet and they're wanting to do bone broth, it's probably very, very difficult to be on a very low protein diet and be using bone broth frequently, because bone broth is going to be much higher than even regular, chicken or other meat broths or veggie broth. Bone broth is going to be 9 to 10 grams of protein per cup, where most other broths are only about 1 or 2 grams of protein. So I think from that standpoint, you ideally wouldn't want to use a bone broth if you are, because it could contribute to too much protein in your diet if you're following a very low protein or low protein diet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. And when you're following a very, very low protein diet, you should be working with a renal dietitian. Let's see. I have let's take this one. Does sugar consumption affect kidney function?
Yes. Long story short, yes, it does. I'll just kind of start off really quickly to answer this one. A lot of people don't really associate our sugar intake with kidneys. We think about salt or other things, or potassium sometimes, phosphorus, but yes, sugar consumption. And I do want to specify, when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about added sugar to the diet. I'm not going to demonize natural sugar in fruits, things like that. We're talking about sugar that is added to a food to make it sweeter. Even the natural sweeteners known as like honey or something like that, or maple syrup, it's still adding sugar into it. So you do want to be aware of how much sugar you're putting into your diet, because over time, too much sugar can develop into prediabetes or diabetes, where all this extra glucose in the body is potentially going to damage the really fine filters that the kidneys have. So you do want to be careful with how much sugar you have in your diet. And I'm not saying not to have any sugar, it's just be aware of how much you are consuming, and aiming for 6 teaspoons per day for women, 9 teaspoons per day for men. Try to keep that at the limit per day, which it can be challenging depending on the, especially drinks that are out there.
Yeah. And to put that in, so like comparison, 4 grams of sugar is about a teaspoon. And so, I mean, you drink one soda, you're having, 30, 40 grams, you're already over that amount. And so I think that's important to keep in mind. And so if you're looking at labels, you can look at where it says added sugar. And I think I'm overly aware of sugar, and I try to get, I try to keep people, hey, can you say closer to maybe only 1 teaspoon of added sugar if you are having something that's like a treat or something sweet. And so that's really only 4 grams of added sugar. But if you can at least keep it where you're not going into double digits, I mean, those are things to keep added sugar down in the diet.
And added sugar is sneaky too. Like, it's obviously in the obvious things like cake and cookie and like soda and whatnot. But like, I always like to give the example of spaghetti sauce. Like spaghetti sauce from a jar has a surprising amount of sugar in it. So it's always good practice to just take a peek at that nutrition facts label, look at sodium, obviously, and the other things that we're used to looking at. But that added sugar line specifically is something you want to pay attention to for kidney health.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to add that it's also important for heart health, so even though if you don't have diabetes, that you probably have heard that you should decrease your sugar consumption, for your heart health is really important too. Previously we talked about heart health and fats, what types of fats we eat, but we know sugar impacts our heart health, and if you have kidney disease, heart health is very, very important. So it's good for your kidneys, for your, if you have diabetes, and good for your heart also.
I'll add that too.
Definitely. Okay, so Jen, you can
Sure.
answer one
Okay,
of
so
yours.
the next one I have here is a follower who's looking for new snack ideas.
Okay, so I think easy, quick ones. I always try to get fruits and veggies in with your snack if you can, snacks and meals, but you can always do veggies and or low sodium crackers with like a hummus or some sort of dip that you make. Fruit with a little bit of unsalted nuts are always good. Popcorn that ideally you pop yourself at home is a good option. I'm trying to think of other things. I don't know. What do you guys have?
You stole
One of my go-tos.
Popcorn's my favorite.
Oh, yeah. One of my go-tos that I've really been on a trend with my clients about lately is a really quick and easy smoothie. And the way I kind of reference it is the negative Prowl smoothie, because we talk about being careful with Prowl, with that acid load for the kidneys. And so it's basically frozen blueberries, milk of choice, and then chia seeds. And it's super, super easy. You could add a little bit of yogurt for like more creaminess. And again, a plant-based yogurt, cashew or coconut yogurt is really great. But something like this is a great way to get in nutrients. And I even say, like, if you have spinach, then throw that in there too, because that also supports that negative Prowl goal that we aim for. And my clients have really, really been enjoying this. It's just so easy. The fact that you can throw it in a smoothie, like blend it all together and drink it on the go, or, at any point in time, it's just a really easy way to get fruits and vegetables in.
I love trail mix. Like if you have like raisins or your favorite like dried fruits that don't have added sugars with those unsalted either nuts or seeds, you can make your own. So also like dates with a little bit of peanut butter, that could be like a fun snack. Or even guacamole with maybe low sodium tortilla chip, or so there's a lot of ideas depending of what you like. If you want something sweeter, or you want something like not salty but in that direction.
Melanie, do you want to, I saw someone just said, but aren't chia seeds very high in oxalates?
Sure.
I feel like, do you want to address
Yeah.
that?
So chia seeds are slightly higher in oxalate, but I would say the oxalate story has been massively overblown. Oxalate does play into kidney stone formation for some people, but for most people, even if you have calcium oxalate stones, it's actually really probably not that important to really stress about how much oxalate is in every single thing that you eat. For the vast majority of people, kidney stones are actually formed because of high calcium in your urine, not oxalate. And so to really be able to answer this oxalate concern and chia seeds question, I would need to look at this person's 24-hour urine test results and see if oxalate is high. And if it is, then yeah, maybe we should like temper chia seed intake or maybe choose some lower oxalate options. But I would probably guess that chia seeds are a perfectly acceptable option for most people with stones. One caveat is that you do want to make sure that no matter what you're eating, quite frankly, if you do have kidney stones and don't have a diagnosis of kidney disease as well, you want to make sure that you are getting dairy, ideally, with your meals, because that is the best source of calcium that will help bind that oxalate and reduce how much oxalate actually gets absorbed into your body. So you can freely enjoy those chia seeds or raspberries or whatever it is that you love that's sort of a no-no food on an oxalate list. But so yes, they are higher in oxalate, but that's probably okay depending on your test results.
Great. So nuts and seeds, probably okay. Okay. Someone is asking, is there gonna be a replay? Yes, we're gonna save it. And I learned how to download, and I'll send them to you guys via emails if you want to like upload to your accounts. Okay, so let's take this one. Is peanut butter safe for kidney disease?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yummy.
Yeah, I think peanut butter is a great option. And
So,
again, I think a lot, we always recommend, like, look at that label. I usually say, get a peanut butter where it's like peanuts, right? Like that should ideally be the ingredient, not have added sugar and added salt in it. But I feel like there's pretty much at every store you go to, whether it's like a health food store or a big place like a Target or Walmart, there's usually options. Again, always look at the ingredient list, because I've seen ones where they say like, okay, it's natural peanut butter, and they've still added salt and sugar because that's obviously something that's natural. But just look at the ingredient list and ideally just peanuts.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking in the soy conversation about plant proteins, kind of touched on that, and peanut butter is a great source of one of those plant proteins. So FYI, completely okay.
definitely. Okay.
Okay,
Jen,
so let's see. The next one we have, how do you find a renal dietitian? I mean, hey, we got a whole group right here.
You found us.
Well, we each can just kind of do a quick reminder of where to find us, and then we can talk about other resources, because I know we all are aware as dietitians, we're aware of other ways people can find us. So for me, Plant Powered Kidneys, you can find us there, or plantpoweredkidneys.com.
and let's add in one-on-one group, like
Yeah,
what,
we do.
how
We
do you
do
work with
one-on-one.
people?
We also have our course, which we have our wait list open, so you can sign up for the wait list, and then you can learn about when the doors will be open for enrollment.
Okay, I'm at plantbasedkidneys.com, plantbased.kidneys on Instagram, plant-based kidney health on YouTube. I work with a very small amount of one-on-one clients. I just came back from maternity leave, so I have limited, childcare. So, but you guys can always reach out to me, send me a DM on Instagram, and I know we'll talk about other ways to find renal dietitians too in a second.
And you can find me at the Kidney Dietitian on Instagram or thekidneydietitian.org. I help people prevent kidney stones specifically in my course, Kidney Stone Nutrition School. And there is an individual help component if you choose to enroll as a VIP student. So you can check that out. All the details are on my website, or certainly feel free to send me a DM if you want to learn more about that.
Perfect. And I do one-on-one. So yeah, for people in Puerto Rico, I do accept health insurance. So that's a way you can work with me. And then I also have like a group, like education class, but it's in Spanish. So remember, for me, it's everything in Spanish.
Yeah.
Oh, and then finding a renal dietitian. I think one of the best resources is National Kidney Foundation has a database of renal dietitians. So it's www.kidney.org/CKDRD, and I'll put that in the comments. But that's a database, and you can search based on your state. And then also there's a telehealth group as well. And so these are specialized renal dietitians who work with clients, whether in their specific state, multiple states, or via telehealth. And so that's a great place, I think, to start. You can always ask your doctor if they have any renal dietitians they work with and recommend. I think some do, and it's awesome. I think a lot don't, unfortunately. But you can also always, if you need to go through your insurance, you can always contact your insurance, ask them for a list of dietitians that are in network with them, and then you can reach out to those dietitians and see what their experience and specialty is within the renal field.
If you are looking at a list of just general dietitians, if you look for the credential CSR, that's Certified Specialist in Renal Nutrition, that is an indication that dietitian has done some extra training and took exam, or some things to be certified in kidney nutrition specifically. So that might help you kind of guide that search if you are going through this giant list of dietitians to help you refine that a little bit.
Yeah. And the dietitian you want to work with one-on-one doesn't accept insurance, know that they can give you like a super bill, and you can take that to your insurance, and they might reimburse you. Sometimes the amount varies, but you can have that returned to you. So that's another way. If the dietitian you want to work with
courses are often covered with, you can get a super bill. I think Jen and I believe both do that. And you can get sometimes reimbursement through an FSA or something like that for a course as well. So FYI, but always look at what your insurance says, because everything is so different.
Yeah, I was going to say, we have actually a blog article at Plant Powered Kidneys. If you go to plantpoweredkidneys.com and you search under our blog insurance, we actually have a pretty detailed blog article that kind of walks you through questions to ask your insurance company related to finding a dietitian. So some of like the insider information of what you should be asking for. I think that can be really helpful, because sometimes insurance companies don't always know what they cover. And if you don't know the right questions to ask, you might not get the answer that you're really hoping for. So hopefully that also helps.
Perfect. So I have a question here. Are you guys able to talk about life after kidney transplant?
Big question.
Yeah, I mean, I think
so. The nutrition part, we can talk about the nutrition part after kidney transplant. We want a healthy diet, a healthy diet that's going to maintain your blood sugars under control, your heart health, that we can decrease the risk of osteoporosis, because the medications that you're going to be on, have those risks. So we want to maintain your weight, blood sugars under control, heart healthy, and good for your bone health, which exercise is also important for that. So what do you guys want to add to the nutrition after kidney transplant?
Add about a piece about food safety, because you are on immunosuppressant medications to help protect that new shiny kidney. And so you want to make sure that you're not doing anything that puts your sort of whole immune system on the lowdown. And so you are more susceptible to getting sick from what you eat. So you want to be really careful about things like undercooked meats, making sure you wash your fruits and vegetables, and looking at expiration dates, and like those sort of like common things that you think about when you think about foodborne illness.
Yeah. And I think what I get asked a lot with people who have had a kidney transplant, so like, oh, does animal protein still matter? Does protein still matter? And so I think it's important. I mean, people have different responses, of course, to their transplant, and ideally, you're going to be monitored, and you really want to go it should continue to be individualized based on your labs and your kidney function with your new kidney that you have. But it is so important to protect that kidney. And so just like when someone has kidney disease, we want them to avoid large amounts of animal protein. That's still important post-kidney transplant. And so I think people oftentimes experience after transplant a lot more flexibility with things like potassium and phosphorus, because now their kidneys aren't failing and they have good kidney function. But I wouldn't say go and eat a ton of hamburgers and really high amounts of animal protein, because that can and likely will impact that new kidney.
And I'd like to add to, similar to the food safety that was mentioned, I would say it's really important to be careful with herbal supplements or supplements in general. You really, really need to run anything by your transplant team, your healthcare providers, to make sure that it is safe and appropriate for you. Because there are some things, just like the food safety concerns, there are some herbal supplements that won't be safe for a kidney transplant. And also to remember that, as mentioned, kidney transplant, you're protecting this new kidney, and it doesn't have a forever lifespan. Typically, kidney transplants will be like 20 years, could be a really great kidney transplant time. So in order to help protect as much of that longevity as possible, it is important to keep that healthy diet really front of mind, and not to be thinking that you get to go back to all of these things, like a high animal protein diet, a lot of processed foods, all the things that we talk about being careful about. You still want to just make sure that you're just keeping an eye out and taking care of your kidneys in that regard.
You, even after transplant, you do technically still have kidney disease, which, isn't great to hear, but it is important to keep in mind, just like Jen said, you want to do everything you can to protect that kidney. And so you still need a, quote, renal diet, just that renal diet is going to look very, very different than what it looked like when you were on dialysis or had CKD stage 5. So work with a dietitian to see what's best for you.
Jen, do you have more questions?
Okay, so let's see. The next one we have coffee and tea. Are there any pros or cons? Coffee and tea.
What was
what are
it
the
again?
pros and cons?
Oh, coffee.
So
Go ahead, Jen.
I was just going to say, one of the big pros is the fact that you're adding more fluid into your diet. Drinking plenty of liquids, water-based liquids, is really, really important. So if we're talking about unsweetened, plain tea, coffee, I think that's really, really great. For coffee, maybe even switching between regular and decaf from time to time. That's something I personally have also been doing lately, is like for every cup of regular coffee, I'll have a cup of decaf if I want that second cup, just to make sure I'm not having too much caffeine. But I think that the pros there, definitely more fluid, really, really helpful to allow the kidneys to do that filtering that it's supposed to do.
Yeah. I'd say from a con standpoint, it's not necessarily kidney specific. It's more if coffee is causing you like anxiety, difficulty sleeping, raising your heart rate, anything like that, then it's probably best to stay away from that or do a decaf option. Usually, at least from what I've seen in research and stuff, where there's an issue with coffee and, kidney disease or kidney health is usually in people consuming more than 3 cups a day. And so I think in general, if you're having 1 or 2 cups and you're staying well hydrated, and you're not putting a bunch of, crap in your coffee, then it's generally safe. But it's if people are getting in that, they're having, 2 venti, coffees or something, they're having 40 ounces of just straight coffee a day, that's where it might be something where you want to cut back on that a little bit.
Most data actually shows a reduced incidence of CKD in coffee drinkers. So, so that's a pro.
Mm-hmm.
And ditto to everyone else. It's not an issue. It's really wonderful, both coffee and tea, unless you're adding a ton of sugar or drinking a ton of it.
And they also add antioxidants. So there's another plus. Let's see. Let's take, let me see. Ooh, this one is good. Is high carb okay for CKD? There's proteinuria there. I'm following a plant-based, but it's a lot of carbs.
The biggest thing really with carbs is, and I think Jen, you mentioned this earlier, with added sugar. There's a big difference between eating, having a bunch of added sugar, or carbohydrates that are highly processed and have very little fiber with very high, carbohydrates. Those are things I would say that are not ideal and you're not getting the benefit of. But if we think of, fruits and veggies and legumes and, even from a whole grain standpoint, something like farro and barley are going to have a lot more fiber for how much carbs they contain than a white rice will. And it's an outdated old recommendation for that renal diet, but you have to have these white grains and highly processed grains. So that's outdated old recommendation. So I think we get this question a lot because people will be like, well, I have diabetes and this is high carb. So it's really, I would really recommend that you look at your fiber intake and how much fiber you're consuming. And then you can compare that to the carbs, because if you're having more fiber, that's helping control blood sugar, preventing spikes, helping you be full, helping improve gut health, helping with getting rid of uremic toxins, all things that are very important for people with kidney disease. And there's ways to have lower carb plant-based or plant predominant diets too.
Yeah,
you also have to define what high carb is, right? So I think certainly the type of carb is probably the most important thing that Michelle just talked about, but also, is it high carb compared to a keto diet? Yeah, and it should be, because that's going to be likely best for your kidney health. So, maybe it's higher than what you're used to because you're used to restricting carbs for whatever reason, but putting it into context of, the type of carb and is it really in the range of where carbs should be? This is going to be different for everyone, but I usually recommend for most people a carb intake of somewhere between 50 to 60% of your calories from carb, which you need to do if you're going to have a lower protein diet, which is, or moderate protein diet even. So I think you kind of have to define what high carb is to answer that question appropriately too.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, because I think a lot of the recent diets that are out there are still demonizing carbs. And so when somebody comes across a diet, a meal plan, recipes even that have half of it being carbohydrates, they're thinking that that is just way too much. And how could a person do that because carbs are horrible? But as mentioned, it's the quality of carbohydrates that you're including, and carbohydrates are our main source of energy. That's what the brain prefers to use for energy sources. And so that's why people can get hangry when they don't eat a very high carb diet or enough carbs. I say high carb because, again, I think people just kind of think that that's what it means. But it really, really is important to understand more about what you're doing for your body. And that's where working with a dietitian can be really helpful, because if you do too much research online and if you're piecemealing things together to try to customize it for yourself, you might come across a lot of these questions and uncertainties and not necessarily feel like you don't know if you're doing the right things. And that can be pretty scary, but working with a dietitian will really, really help dissolve that. I know all of us, without working with Maria or Michelle or Melanie, I know that working with us right away in the first session, you will feel better in understanding what's going on with your own kidney health just by getting personalized clarification.
Yeah. And I wanna say two things. Like the carbs, if you have diabetes, then we spread them out, and your plate, remember that your plate will be mostly vegetables, so don't forget your veggies and also your healthy fats. Okay, people, I've like people get scared of adding their fats to the plate, you know. So depending on your calorie needs, then we determine like how carbs you need per meal, and then if you need a higher calorie, then maybe fats will help us get there. So the diet is not extremely high in carbs, to say it in a way, and you have like that balance. And the other thing that this person is asking is proteinuria. So for proteinuria, remember sodium, avoid excess sodium. And if you switch from more animal proteins to plant-based proteins, that can also help. Okay, Jen, your turn.
Okay, so this one is a kidney stone specific question. For kidney stones, does the timing of when you drink water matter? Is it better around meal times or between meals? And then additionally to that, is it okay to drink reverse osmosis filtered water?
So I'll answer that second one first. Yes, it's totally fine to drink any kind of water generally, but you don't need to. Literally plain old tap water is totally fine. If you have a concern, sometimes the question of hard water comes up in kidney stones, and I have a great article on my website. If you want to check that out, if you just go to thekidneydietitian.org and search hard water, it'll pop up. But for the vast majority of us, just plain old tap water or whatever kind of bottled water, whatever you like to drink, water is, it's boring, but like literally the most important thing you can do to prevent stones. And so the timing. So in short, the timing of water doesn't matter. As long as you get that water in, that's what we're after. However, like it doesn't matter, you know, if you drink it with meals or without, in between meals, like whatever. I just want you to get that water in. But it is really important to do your best as well as you can to kind of spread that water intake consistently throughout the day. So like if you know, and this happens all the time, you know, we're busy, we get to the end of the day, we're like, crap, I haven't had any of my water, and I down 2 liters of water. Like that's great, you know, during that time you're going to be preventing stones, but the whole rest of the day you were more on the dehydrated side and your urine was going to be more concentrated, and so you're putting yourself at risk during that time when you were forgetting to drink water. So it does matter in the sense that you just want to kind of spread out that water consumption as much as you can consistently. Sometimes the issue comes up of like, oh, I'm like peeing all the time at night, and there's some things that we can do to help that, but sleep is probably the most important thing for your health over anything. And so you know, you can work with your dietitian or your doctor to kind of like slowly reduce how much water you drink towards the end of the day, but short answer, you just want to get it consistently throughout the day.
Great. So we have about 10 to 13 more minutes. Let me see what else.
I have 2 more questions that are posted.
So is a plant-based diet good for
Yes.
kidney patients? Yeah.
Yes, with the caveat that plant-based is becoming a trend and a fad, and so there's a lot of highly processed food and fast food and junk food that slaps the label plant-based on it if it's not containing animal products. So that would be the thing I would say, to, you know, a minimally processed plant-based or plant predominant diet that is full of fruits and veggies. It's great for people with kidney disease. If you are, you know, having, you know, going to the fast food place and then buying frozen meals that are these plant-based and they're, you know, full of salt and still very high in protein, then I would say that's not ideal for someone with kidney disease.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it can also be good for people on dialysis. So if for some reason you were following a plant-based diet for dialysis and eat dialysis, you can still follow a plant-based diet. Work with your dialysis dietitian. You'll have one in your unit, so they can figure out like how much protein and if you need a potassium restriction. So, you know, in every stage of kidney disease, yes, even also. Okay, so I think one more. Do you think, Or do you want to answer the two that you have, Jen?
I think we can answer one of them pretty quickly.
Okay.
So what are our thoughts on taking K2 along with vitamin D? So yeah.
I say yes.
It's really highly recommended, and many supplements that you come across will automatically have vitamin, usually D3, paired with K2. So it is becoming a more common recommendation.
And I think the thing about it, a lot of times, I feel like recently I've seen more people asking, well, should it be taken separately? And I think there is, what I've read is there's some, people worry about the absorption of the D3 if it's with K2. Look, if it's easier, a lot of supplements are paired because there's still good absorption of the vitamins and it's easier, right? There's less remembering. But if you have separate supplements, then you could take D3 in the morning, K2 in the evening, and that's totally fine too. Mm-hmm. But always check with your doctor. Then there comes in, okay, questions about, am I on, Coumadin or warfarin or always before you add any supplement, always run it by your doctor to make sure it's not interacting with any medications that you're taking.
Because not everybody needs to be on a vitamin D supplement, even though it is one of the more common ones. It's not something that is always advised because we can get too much vitamin D in our system.
And the dose will vary depending on your labs. So if you're deficient or you're normal, then the dose also will vary. And
so the other one I have is pretty specific, but maybe we can do like a couple points to it. Somebody is asking for a good diet for somebody who has diabetes, type 2 diabetes, stage 3 kidney disease, and wants to lose a significant amount of weight. So are there any tips that you have with that?
I'd say my number one tip would be increase your non-starchy veggies that you're consuming. That's going to help your kidney health. It's going to help your blood sugar control. It's going to help bulk up your meal so you still feel like you're getting a good volume of food, but potentially not getting as many calories or, higher carb meal if weight loss is something that you need.
Yeah. I think if you can, try exercising, and start slow. You don't have to start, like if you're not used to exercising, just start 10 minutes, 2 to 3 times a week. Just get into the routine of moving and then slowly increase your time. And how fast you walk and all those things will definitely help you to lose weight. So yes, that could be also something important. Remember for kidneys to always keep very hydrated before, during, and after exercise.
Yeah. And I'll just add really quickly, if you have to look at certain things related to your food or to a nutrition label, look at that fiber. Fiber is really, really helpful for blood sugar control, really helpful for kidney health, really helpful for weight loss. Like there are some cases where fiber might not be recommended if you have certain gut issues, but in general, aiming for at least minimum 25 grams of fiber per day, upwards of that. I mean, some of our students are taking in like 50 grams of fiber per day once they kind of build up that plant-based diet and they have a good, I don't want to say tolerance, but their system is used to consuming that much. You don't want to go from like 10 grams of fiber to 50 grams of fiber overnight because your gut is not going to be happy with that. But if you work on slowly increasing your fiber intake, that can be incredibly helpful. And it gives you kind of one quantifiable goal to be reaching when you are looking at your diet.
That's a good segue into what I was going to suggest, which my suggestion was to maybe just a couple times a week swap in some plant-based proteins in place of some of those animal proteins. One of the many benefits of those plant proteins is that they're probably going to be super high in fiber. Beans, nuts, and seeds have tons of fiber in them. So that, in addition to the fruits and vegetables that Michelle talked about, is a great start to get you to that 25 minimum grams of fiber per day.
Yes. So I think that's a great question to wrap up. We're glad that everyone joined us live here, and if you're watching the recording also, thank you for watching, and we'll go around again and tell you our names, where can you find us, and then we'll be off. So let's start.
Okay, so my name is Jen Hernandez, the founder dietitian behind Plant Powered Kidneys, and you can find us at Plant Powered Kidneys on Instagram, Plant Powered Kidneys on Facebook, or our website, plantpoweredkidneys.com.
Yeah. My name is Michelle Crosmer, and I am the dietitian behind Plant-Based Kidneys. Plant-Based Kidneys Instagram, plantbasedkidneys.com is my website, and then I'm on YouTube with a nephrologist, and it's Plant-Based Kidney Health if you're searching on YouTube.
And I'm Melanie Betts. You can find me here on Instagram at The Kidney Dietitian or thekidneydietitian.org.
And Maria Rodriguez. I work with Spanish-speaking clients, so you can find me here on Instagram, Nutrición Renal PR or nutricionrenalpr.com. So thank you, and have a great rest of the month, National Nutrition Month, National Kidney Month, and National Women's Month.
Bye,
Bye, guys.
everybody.
Good to see everyone.
Yeah, great to see you all too.